3 years. 3 years. They bring him back, and we still have no game. No, it's fine. It's fine. You know why it's fine? Banjo is going to come back in full force. I am going to will it into existence. I did it with Rayman, and I will do it again. How's it going, everybody? If you can't tell, I have certain feelings about the Banjo-Kazooie IP. The series came out right around when I was born, and so I didn't get to experience the series until a little bit later into my childhood, and yet the Bear and Bird became such a huge part of my gaming memories growing up. When I was younger, I always saw them as Nintendo characters, and once I got older, I got confused as to why we didn't see them anymore. In case you didn't already know, Microsoft purchased Rare in 2002, which obviously included Banjo-Kazooie. This is a move that to this day still kinda annoys me. Rare was at their peak at the beginning of the 2000s, and for all intents and purposes, they felt like a first-party studio for Nintendo, and yet they still got snatched up by a rival company. Now, I'm not saying that for sure Rare would still be churning out games like they used to if they were owned by Nintendo, but I think their various franchises would at least have a bit more of a fighting chance with the big M. So in the early 2000s under Microsoft, Rare still released a few titles of their existing IP, such as Conquer, Live and Reloaded, and Perfect Dark Zero, but no Banjo. In fact, we didn't see Banjo-Kazooie again until 2008 with the release of Nuts and Bolts. I have mixed opinions on this game. It wasn't a bad game in and of itself, but it wasn't a proper Banjo game. And sadly, this game's radical departure from the classic Banjo formula sorta ended up being the final nail in the coffin for the platforming duo. Until Smash Ultimate, that is. See, around the time of Smash, we started seeing what were seemingly signs of life for the property. New merch was being made, figures, shirts, plushes, even physical music releases. There were even new trademarks starting to pop up. And then of course, it all came to a head with the reveal that Banjo and Kazooie were joining Smash Ultimate during E3 of 2019. This was so exciting. Finally, we got Banjo and Kazooie back, and on a Nintendo platform too. Surely Microsoft is planning a new game for them as well, right? Which brings us to today. Since Banjo and Kazooie joined Smash, the only Banjo-related content we have gotten has been in the form of the original game being re-released on NSO. And while it's cool to see, it feels like we have waited more than long enough for a new entry in the series. So let's talk about how Microsoft could finally bring them back. Normally, when it comes to game revivals, I would suggest remasters or remakes to gauge series interest, but I think we're beyond that point for Banjo. Not that I would be opposed to a remake of the first two games, it's just, I think Microsoft already knows how much fans want the series to return. The general audience reaction to seeing Banjo and Kazooie finally get into Smash had to have been noticed by Microsoft, and of course, plenty of fans were immensely excited to see the original game be re-released on NSO as well. So if Microsoft already knows the demand is there, what's the holdup? Well, the main issue, I believe, lies in the fact that Rare is a much different studio. For the past decade, most of their focus has been on their latest title, Sea of Thieves, along with their upcoming title, Everwild. This can be seen especially in the fact that Battletoads finally got a revival recently, but it wasn't even made by Rare. It got outsourced to another studio. I don't think the issue lies in Xbox not wanting a new Banjo game to be made, it's more or less finding the right studio that wants to take on the task of making it. Phil Spencer himself has even said that a new Banjo game isn't up to him, it's up to Rare to decide. And while Rare has said in the past that they would be open to the idea if they can bring new ideas to the franchise, the more likely outcome seems to be having another studio take on the project. So now comes the question of which studio is right for the job. We have a few options, I think. The first of which is Double Fine, which has been an Xbox studio since 2019. It feels like a great fit for them to make a Banjo game, considering that the studio has not only the experience in making quality 3D platformers, but also the quirky off-the-wall writing style that would fit perfectly in the Banjo-Kazooie universe. Psychonauts 2 was an incredible game and proved that Double Fine would be more than capable. However, I see this as unlikely considering that Tim Schafer has stated that Double Fine prefers to make their own original stuff. Nonetheless, if it were to ever happen, it would be a great match. The next option I had in mind is Playtonic. With the studio being made up of many of the original people who made Banjo-Kazooie so great to begin with, it would make sense to bring them back. Their original spiritual successor, Yooka-Laylee, while not perfect, proved that they at least still have the passion to make fun 3D platformers. This one feels up in the air as well, seeing as how in the first Yooka-Laylee title, there was actually the idea of Banjo making an appearance in the Xbox version. This never came to be, and while we don't know all the specific details, Playtonic working on Banjo might just not be in the cards. And besides, the studio has established their own IP at this point, and has even moved into publishing many new notable indie games. So while returning to their roots with Banjo would be really cool to see, I personally get the feeling that the studio may have moved on from the Baron Bird. The last studio I had in mind is one that a lot of people seem to agree would be a great fit for Banjo, Toys for Bob. The Activision studio has a long history of working on games in the same wheelhouse as Banjo-Kazooie. Games like Skylanders, Spyro the Dragon, and even Crash Bandicoot. They recently brought Crash back to life too in a brand new entry with Crash 4 It's About Time, and the timing feels right for them to take on making a new Banjo game because Activision is currently being acquired by Microsoft, so that obviously includes Toys for Bob. I think that out of all the studios mentioned this far, this one is the one that I have the most confidence in for reviving Banjo-Kazooie. But once again, this one has the issue of them already working on Crash and Spyro at the moment, so another platformer might feel like a bit too much for the studio. In the end, whatever studio ends up reviving this beloved property, at the very least we can take comfort in knowing that Banjo will be back. And as long as no car building mechanics get thrown in again somehow, that'll be enough for me. That's all I really want at the end of the day, is for this series to make a grand return and be seen as one of the great platforming icons again. And I honestly don't think we need some big change in the formula either. After an outing like Nuts and Bolts, I feel like a classic return to form for the series will be more than welcomed. There is also the fact that there have been rumblings among gaming insiders about a potential return to the series, so it might not even be too long before we hear something. But for now, I think that's enough out of me. If you guys like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.